we never touched on the race issue. We touched on the race issue a few times. Like I said, you saw in the video when we spoke about colonization.
Right.
There was another time which was very interesting to me, which was further down the line, when we were talking about manhood, and Pearl randomly said, "Do I think George Washington is a real man?" And I said, being in the UK, I don't know much about George Washington. What do you mean? And she said, "Oh, you know, people talk about him hundreds and hundreds of years later and all this kind of stuff." And I just asked her, I said, "Did he have slaves?" And, you know, this is online. And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Any man that has slaves is not a real man to me." And she was like, "Oh, but, you know, his slaves kind of saw him as their dad." And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, and that's when I started to realize this woman doesn't have a clue when it comes to race and race relations. However, she's so dogmatic, right? In the things that she says about race and racism. It's like the more and more that I saw, I was like, no, this is a very quote unquote colonial mindset.
What's good, YouTube? This is KB LaFleur. You can call me KB. Welcome back to another video, man. We got Osei Duke Jackson and we got our boy Sarah Garvey. But before we get into that, man, do me a huge favor, leave me a like, leave me a comment, and leave me a subscribe. So if y'all haven't been hip to the news lately, what's been going on with the Just Pearly situation, she said something off the wall, right? She said something that a lot of black people did not agree with, and she brought on Nick Fuentes to her show, right? A lot of black folk had mixed feelings with that. You know, some call her a racist. Some say, you know, hey, the people who are calling her a racist are just sensitive, right? And I get it from both sides, right? I get it from both sides. For the people who, you know, feel like she's a racist or whatnot, I understand their anger. I understand why they would be upset. And for the people who are saying, man, yo, these people are just sensitive, I understand it from their side too, right? But where I stand, you know, it's either you hot or you cold. It's either you're either with Pearly or you're against Pearly, right? So for me, I'm against her in the sense that, you know, I just didn't agree with what she said. That's it. That's all for me. I just didn't agree with what she said. But I wouldn't go as far as to call her a racist, right? Because once again, you know, a lot of people who are calling her a racist already didn't like her to begin with. So it was just, they just needed one thing from this girl. They needed one thing from this girl to go ahead and say, oh yeah, she's written off. She's written off. Everybody has, you know, of course, their opinion, you know, but for her in this situation, she's just ill-informed, right? And she's privileged, very privileged, come from a wealthy family. So for her to say some of those things, such as slavery was embellished, that was out of bounds. That was out of pocket, because once again, slavery can't be over exaggerated. That's how bad slavery was, right? But then, you know, fast forward, you had King Richards come out, you know, and react to MTR saying something about her, you know, and once again, King Richards is up under Just Pearly, so of course he's going to try to defend her. So, you know, then of course, you know, Osei Duke Jackson, and this is where I would say there's some type of reaching, right? This is why I say it's reaching. And it's not just him. You got a lot of people in the black community that's reaching to some degree at that time, right? So, you know, once again, fast forward, everybody's going back and forth in Manosphere and Red Pill. And, you know, like I said, for me, it's just reaching, man, because we're all getting bent out of shape because of what a woman said. And the thing is, we having a lot of people in the Manosphere community and the Red Pill community going back and forth over that. And to me, that just that don't make no sense. That does not make any sense. And even then, I'm still not going to sit up here and say, oh, well, you know, she's a racist, she's this, you know, she's this, she's a white supremacist, yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to say that. But then you have Six the Goddess call her a white supremacist.
When it comes to the subject of white supremacy is Pearl. Pearl is white supremacy personified. The fact that her, as a privileged white woman, even thinks that she has the audacity or any qualifications to speak on things like, you know, slavery and racism and stuff like that.
So, you know, once again, you have other content creators calling her white supremacist. Then you have Six the Goddess. She's calling her a white supremacist. And I'm just like, whoa, you're going hard. You're going too hard. Then you had Tommy Sotomayor come up here and say something, right? Even then, that still wasn't enough for me to call her a racist. Even after hearing O'Shea Du Jackson's point of view, hearing Six the Goddess point of view, hearing all of these other brothers' point of view, still, my stance on her still didn't change. But when I saw Sarah Garvey, I saw that Pearly was trying to copyright strike him. That is where I drew the line. That's why I said, okay, now sis, right? I looked at you weird when you said the shit that you said. But now that you're trying to sit up here, you know, and try to get Sarah Garvey's channel shut down, that for me kind of was kind of like, okay, whoa, now hold on. Now this man helped build your platform, right? This man helped build your platform. It was you and him, right? It was you and him. And now all of a sudden you're trying to get this man channel shut down because he's over here exposing some things, right? So yes, I started to look at it differently, right? Still, even then, it still didn't make me want to say, okay, she's a racist, she's a white supremacist. But it did make me question her a lot. It did make me question her a lot. Now, Sarah Garvey decided to do an interview with O'Shea Du Jackson, and it cleared up a lot of things for me. And Sarah Garvey is very credible. In my opinion, he's very credible. And like I said, you are judged by your works on this channel, right? You are judged by your works on this channel. Perception is key, right? And there is no reason for me to not believe this brother, right? There's no reason for me not to believe this brother, right? I believe everything he's saying. I'm gonna just be real with you. I believe everything that he's saying. He's a very intelligent brother, very intellectual brother. So now we're talking about these contracts. And I'm starting to understand and see maybe she does have a mindset of a colonizer, right? Still, while I still call her a racist, I'm still not sold on the racist part, but I will say she is a snake, and I will say I did lose a lot of respect for her. Right? She even came out with an apology.
Yeah, I know why you guys are here. Okay. So I want to first say I take full accountability for everything that happened. Everything that happens in life, as I say to the girls on my show, is my own fault. The fact that people are making these videos is my own fault. And the situation that I'm in is my own fault. Now I'm going to give you guys an explanation and give you guys context for some of the conversations that were had.
My view on her, it changed, man. And, I don't think I could support her. So the fact that Sarah Garvey he tried to curve her mindset. He tried to help her learn about what black people went through, right? She kind of just brushed it off. She's kind of just, I see the direction that I want to put shit in, and she's going to be stubborn a little bit. And now I have to take some issue with that. Because it's like, I'm trying to give the sister the benefit of the doubt, but she has no integrity for trying to shut down his channel. You have no integrity. Then with some of the things that he was saying about the contracts, sis, but what really done it for me was all the things that he was saying leading up to the Nick Fuentes, right? All the things he was trying to help, he was trying to coach her, he was trying to help her understand about the black culture, understand about the black community, understand about slavery, understand what we've been through as black people. And she just don't care. She just did not care.
Never touched on the race issue. We touched on the race issue a few times. Like I said, you saw in a video when we spoke about colonization.
Right.
There was another time, which was very interesting to me, which was further down the line, when we were talking about manhood. And Pearl randomly said, "Do I think George Washington is a real man?" And I said, being in the UK, I don't know much about George Washington. What do you mean? And she said, people talk about him hundreds and hundreds of years later and all this kind of stuff. And I just asked her, I said, did he have slaves? And, this is online. And she said, yeah. I said, any man that has slaves is not a real man to me. And she was like, oh, but, his slaves kind of saw him as their dad. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And that's when I started to realize this woman doesn't have a clue when it comes to race and race relations. However, she's so dogmatic, right? In the things that she says about race and racism. It's like the more and more that I saw, I was like, no, this is a very quote unquote colonial mindset. yeah, then she was, and I said, "What's your management like?" And she was like, "Oh, I've been managed now." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So obviously, me being an independent, I was not part of the company, so I wouldn't have known that. So then she divulged to me later on, not initially. She didn't tell me initially who her management was, but as it got further and further, and things started to get more, more bright and shiny, I was like, "Who's your management? Like, who's funding this? What's going on here?" And she was like, "Oh, she has the same management as Candace Owens." And so I was like, "Okay, cool." So, I had to go and research who Candace Owens was. I had to go and sit and see who Candace Owens was. And I was like, okay. And then that's when things started to change. Like some of the views she started coming out with, and, I guess she started to bolster herself up a little bit more on the views and stuff. And, it's my contention that her management probably share the same views that, she espouses now,
Right.
when it comes to the whole quote unquote my Africans thing. And yeah, especially when it came to like recruitment and stuff, it was very interesting, and who she used to start recruiting, and the reasons why she was constantly recruiting. Because if you go back in the show, we've always had like a mixed panel of people, but the more and the more, she started to gain popularity, is a more and more I started to see that it was, primarily black. It was primarily black. She hired a black recruiter. She was constantly hiring other black people. She had an assistant. She was black. And I was like, on the surface, this looks amazing. Black people are getting hired. Black people are, getting jobs, or they're doing well. But then, like I said, I started to see the colonial mindset in there. And that's when I started to say, maybe these things aren't as good as they seem.
Okay, so again, that's been the argument from so many people, in Black YouTube. She's giving Africans or Black people jobs. Okay, and now I know that you're not a part of the company. You're working something like as a contractor, and you were recently just on there with Melanie King,
with Melanie King and MTR, yeah.
Right. So then, knowing what you know, what would then cause you at this particular perfect timing, when all this has come out, to release this information about, so much the elephant in the room, or, kind of taking off the mask there, or exposing the naked truth? Why, for someone to know why now, we were just on a few weeks ago.
I think for me, I think the catalyst was Nick Fuentes and how that went down. Okay. And for me, I've said before, I had no idea she interviewed Nick Fuentes. Even though you spoke about MTR and Melanie King, she had done the Nick Fuentes interview prior to us being on the panel. None of them knew. Okay, and the only time I knew is when it popped up on my timeline. And me thinking, okay, cool, she's done all of this, because even though I could see certain things in her, I was like, okay, all right, I don't like that. I'll try and school her hair. Don't like that. Try and school her hair. With the Nick Fuentes thing, for me, that was a step too far. To me,
what about it was a step too far?
The way in which she spoke with him, and her ignorance, her blind ignorance, when it came to speaking, for me, with another white person about colonization, slavery, and black people. You see, there are things in that interview that she's never expressed to me, right? There are things in that interview that I realized and I heard, and I was like, I'm too uncomfortable with this. And I already knew about, I said, I've already been invited to, that crazy party, right? And I was like, no, this is a step too far. And so what happened, I saw the backlash that she was getting off the Nick Fuentes interview. And, I spoke with her after the Nick Fuentes interview, and I said, what was that about? Like, what was that all about? Like, why were you doing that? And then she was like, she was very blasé. right? She's very blasé, like, oh, well, you know, maybe in hindsight, I should have done this. And, you know, maybe in hindsight, I should have done that. And I said, Pearl, this ain't a good look. You know, this ain't a good look. Like, why would you interview somebody like that?
And once again, her channel is not centered around Black issues or the Black community, right? But what I mean by she kind of shimmied her way in the Black community, she built her platform off the backs of Black people. So that's why I'm saying, you know, hey, you know, I'm having mixed emotions, you know, and, you know, once again, just going off of that, that's why I said, man, okay, I get it, right? I get it. She might not be as innocent as we think. Well, as I thought, right? She might not be as innocent as I thought, right? But, you know, hey, once again, man, like I said, I'm not going to be so quick to write somebody off. Right? I feel like that's just being fake, to write somebody off quickly. Right? Like I said, at the time when that first happened, at the time when Nick Fuentes came on the show, when Pearly said what she said, when that happened, I said, man, okay, look, I get it. We all are upset at what she said, but I wouldn't write her off this quick, because once again, right, I need to see more. I need to see more. See, we all deserve chances, right? We all deserve a second chance, right? We all deserve an opportunity to redeem ourselves, right? But then once again, right, you also got to look at the track record too. Didn't have the track record, you know, and now that we have the track record, Pearly's just out here, she's really just out here for herself, from what it seems like. She's really out here for herself. So, you know, I really do look at it differently. Once again, I'm still not going to call her racist, but I will say she is most definitely a snake. And like I said, I'm glad we have Sarah Garvey up here to talk about this. And I'm glad O'Shea Duke Jackson even brought him on there to talk about this, right? This really puts everything in a perspective. This gave me a good understanding, right? This gave me a good understanding of how Pearly really is. You're talking about somebody. You have somebody talking about Pearly who actually worked with her. You know what I'm saying? So that's enough for me to say, okay, yeah, sis is done for, right? Sis is done for. I can't support her. I really can't. If she really thinks that, you know, hey, there's nothing wrong with slavery if you have George Washington having slaves, and a lot of his slaves looked up to him as a father. Of course. And I bet you a lot of slaves looked up to some of these women who were slave owners as mothers. I bet you a lot of these slaves looked up to these female slave owners as mothers. Why? Because their real mothers was getting raped, getting whipped to death, getting burned to death, y'all know what I'm talking about. But once again, we're gonna sit up here and say something as ignorant as that. This right here is enough for me. And it shows that she's a snake. It shows that she's just out here for herself. You're going to try to copyright strike this man for videos that he been had up. And now, you know what I'm saying? Now, because, you know, hey, you did what you did. He's saying, let me go ahead and distance myself, because I've been trying to get you to understand what Black culture is like, but you don't want to understand that. Slavery will always be a part of Black culture. You don't really care for that. You really don't want to understand that. And now you're in this situation. I got to remove myself from here. And he wants to go ahead and expose a little bit of that shit. And he's saying, man, look, Pearly isn't as innocent as you think. And now we're seeing that. Now I'm seeing that she's a snake on top of that. You're a freaking snake. It's a snake move. Right? To sit over here and try to do somebody like that, somebody who helped you build your platform up, and then the 70 to 30. I mean, come on, man. It really, come on. You're asking him to do the show. You know, in my opinion, right? Once again, as I said before, you know, I would just use her platform to help build my platform. But to sit over here and ask this man, you know, hey, I want you to do a show, right? But it's going to be 70% my way, 30% your way. Nah, man, nah. And I can see where he's coming from when he's saying that she has a mindset of a colonizer. You know, so I get it, man. But you know, y'all let me know down below. Y'all let me know, man, how y'all feel about it, man. Because there's still going to be more stories coming out about just Pearly, and it ain't looking too good, man. You know, but you know, for me, hey, man, look, she lost me as a supporter. You know, I can't. You know, I can't. I just personally can't. You know, you're a snake. That's a snake move. But y'all do me a huge favor, man. Leave me a like, leave me a comment, and leave me a subscribe.